Hello, and welcome to the podcast series entitled In the Footsteps of St. Francis de Sales. My name is Father John O'Neill, and I am an oblate of St. Francis de Sales. It is my pleasure to be your host as we journey in the footsteps of this great saint. In this podcast, we will focus on the major sites in Annecy that involve the life of St. Francis de Sales and his history. For this purpose, we will present images of each of the major sites, primarily from the exterior, but also give some indication of the contents where appropriate. For each site, we will give a brief comment. A more detailed presentation on the major sites are available in the podcast dedicated to each in this series. Throughout this podcast, we will be using the map of the old city of Annecy for 9 of the sites appearing thereon. The first site that we will consider is the gallery, located at number 15 in the lower right portion of the map. However, before going to the gallery, you may want to stop just below the gallery on the Rue des Marquitas to view the statue of St. Francis de Sales, overlooking the lake and the port. In the next map, we have a more detailed location pinpointing the exact spot of the gallery in relationship to the port and the lake. Between the port and the gallery, you see the Rue des Marquitas, in which the statue of St. Francis de Sales is located. If you do have the opportunity to see the statue of St. Francis de Sales, which was placed in that location in the 1920s, you can see the plaque on the front of the statue states, St. Francis de Sales, the glory of Savoy and of French literature. Now turning our attention to the gallery of the Visitation, which is actually located in the convent of the Sisters of St. Joseph of Annecy at number 10 Place aux Bois. It was here on June the 16th that Jane de Chantal, with 3 companions, left everything to found the Maison de la Galerie, the Order of the Visitation of Holy Mary, an order which she founded along with St. Francis de Sales. This new form of religious life, adapted to the health of those who could not endure the austerities of the great religious orders, responded to the need of the time and spread rapidly outside of Savoy into France and the Piedmont region. In 1641, Jane de Chantal died at the monastery at Moulins after having founded 87 monasteries. The convent and the chapel of the Sisters of St. Joseph are presently located on the spot of the monastery of the second community of the Annecy Visitation, founded by Jane de Chantal in 1634, which existed up till the French Revolution in 1789. Now please locate the Church of St. Francis de Sales on your map, which is number 14. What is now the Church of St. Francis de Sales was actually the first community of the Visitation when it moved from the Maison de Galerie to the current location in 1612. The church was consecrated in 1617 by Francis de Sales and restored and enlarged in 1645. The relics of the 2 saintly founders were venerated here up until the Revolution. Next to the church on the left-hand side was the location of the first monastery of the Visitation after the sisters left the Maison de la Galerie, which quickly became too small. Today it is a welcome and information center for the Diocese of Annecy, dedicated, as its name implies, to St. Francis de Sales, the patron of the diocese and of journalists and writers. Now if we take a look at our map, we can see that right close by to the Church of St. Francis de Sales is the Church of St. Maurice, located at number 13 on your map. The Church of St. Maurice was a parish which St. Francis de Sales loved to come to. It is the former church of the Dominicans and the oldest church of Annecy, built in 1422. It is the location where St. Francis de Sales was confirmed in 1577. As a priest and later as bishop, he heard confessions and taught catechism classes and preached several Lenten series here. Before moving on to the Notre Dame de Liesse, on the way at College Square and on College Street, is the site of the school founded by Eustache Chapuis in 1549, which Francis de Sales attended. Father Redento Baranzano, a Barnabite, taught here several years later the Copernican heliocentric theory and the ideas of Galileo, at a time when these ideas were strictly and sharply contested by the Church. Francis de Sales, as bishop, supported him in 1617 when he was recalled by his superior general to Milan, and the next year was able to have him come back to Annecy and teach. Now turning our attention to Notre Dame de Liesse, shortly after his episcopal ordination, Francis de Sales established classes for children at noon on Sundays in the church of Notre Dame de Liesse, which means Our Lady of Joy. A young man with a loud voice would walk through the streets of the city and remind the people of this weekly gathering. Little by little, the parents joined in, and in a short time, the adults outnumbered the children, so that several groups had to be formed. The Church of St. Maurice, then called St. Dominic, seemed to be more appropriate. It became the place where the bishop, assisted by some priests, regularly taught catechism. Before leaving the church, be sure to notice on the outside of the building a plaque stating that in 1566, Francis's mother, who did not have a child at the time, came to ask God for a son who would turn out to be St. Francis de Sales, and who on September the 8th, 1614, while the holy bishop was presiding, a white dove descended upon him. The next site we hope to visit is the Cathedral of St. Peter in Chains, which is number 7 on your map. At the time of St. Francis de Sales and Jane de Chantal, this church housed the canons of the chapter of the cathedral from St. Peter's in Geneva, who had been exiled in Annecy. Francis de Sales was ordained a priest here, and it wasn't until 1771 that this church became a cathedral, taking the name of St. Peter in Chains after that of the cathedral in Geneva. Directly across from the cathedral, we have La Maison Lambert, the Lambert House on the Rue Jean-Jacques Rousseau. It was the first episcopal residence of St. Francis de Sales. The Lambert House is not open to the public. It is a private residence. However, inside, in the stairwell, there is a stained glass window of St. Francis de Sales, and below his image is the coat of arms of the Lambert family on the left and the episcopal coat of arms of St. Francis de Sales on the right. Now, leaving the area of the cathedral, you want to move towards your west to the Rue de la République, and from there you're going to make a left onto the Rue de la République, go across the canals, and then make a left on the Rue Saint-Clair, which is number 4 on your map. It should only be a brief walk until you come to the 18 Rue Saint-Clair, which is the private residence of Antoine Favre, which served as the bishop's residence for St. Francis de Sales starting in 1610. It was in this residence that Antoine Favre, a senator of Savoy, and Francis de Sales laid the foundations for the Académie Fleury-Montaigne in 1606. And as is quoted, they discussed here the fine points of language, especially French. Continuing on the Rue Saint-Clair, you'll see that it comes to the Rue de Ile at the corner of Port-Moran. It is here that the home of Madame de Chamoisy, the Philothea of Francis de Sales, whose name was evoked in the introduction to About Life, resided with her husband. The final and most important Salesian site remaining on our tour is that of the Basilica of the Visitation of Holy Mary, situated high on the hill overlooking Annecy at number 14 Rue de la Visitation. The basilica is surrounded by the current Monastery of the Visitation, the third site in Annecy. It also houses a museum as well as the reliquaries of Francis de Sales and Jane de Chantal. This concludes our tour of the major sites, Salesian sites of the town of Annecy. I encourage you to review the other podcasts in this series for more details about these major sites. Thank you very much.